Well, howdy friends, Brian Flechsig of Mad River Outfitters and the Midwest Fly Fishing Schools. We are coming at you once again from Ohio. This time we're on a float trip for steelhead. It's early March 2021 and we're on a float trip for steelhead with our favorite guide, Josh McQueen of Mad River Outfitters and Ohio Fly Fishing Guides. So float along with us. Stay out of that, stay out of that. Better tighten up my drag a little bit.
Yeah, this one's not small. I'm sure you saw it. It's not bad at all. That's a hard-earned one there, bud.
Well, friends, I'm a little bit worn out after that, and we just taped him out 29 and a half. Him or her?
It's a him. It's a buck for sure. Yep.
29 and a half. Certainly one of the biggest steelhead I've caught in a long time. Nice.
Hey, it's a female. First one of the day. Big old hand.
Let me up, I've had enough. That's all I can do. We're going to Disney World. So Josh, we're early in our steelhead season here in Ohio. It's early March. Still pretty chilly, although it's warming up nice today, beautiful day. But you know, the water temperature is still pretty cold, and I think we were just discussing the fact that it may well be that a few degrees in water temperature here this afternoon with the sun bearing down on us has made all the difference in the world. All of a sudden these fish have turned on. But the key is this time of year, the technique, although it might not be our favorite technique, I know a lot of us would, I love stripping streamers. We all love swinging the flies on the two-handed rods, but when the water's this cold and the fish are this kind of almost dormant at this time, the best technique is by far dead drifting flies.
Yeah, I think it got us this morning on the water temps because we struggled a little bit. We've hit a lot of great spots, stuff that we've caught fish in over the years that there wasn't really any reason where there shouldn't have been fish there. In fact, we saw water's clear enough. We saw a couple fish in these holes and they just weren't responding. And obviously with the sun, that helped. The north wind's keeping the air temperature cold, but that sun's penetrating this fairly clean water. And I think we've probably come up about 3 or 4 degrees on the graph now on the water temperature I just looked at a little bit ago, and it's made all the difference for us for sure.
Yeah.
So, and I would also agree with you. I feel like when it's this cold, if we can get into some of these deeper cuts where these fish have slid back a little bit and are just kind of hanging out in the slower water, get the eggs down or some stone flies down deep, and that's been the technique that finally got us some good action here.
You got to get the flies to the bottom. So using the right amount of split shot having the indicator in the right place, but you've still got to get that dead drift. If your egg is moving through the water, if that nymph is moving through the water unnaturally, the fish just aren't going to eat. You and I have both seen it time and time again.
Yeah, definitely. The number one thing that I would say that I preach on my guide trips is getting a clean drift. And I know that you are a high stick guy. You do great with high sticking. I like to fish a lot of stack mends, and so I think we could probably look at some of that too.
You know, we have a lot of people that even ask us what mending is. And of course, when I'm steelhead fishing here, I use nothing but a 10-foot, sometimes an 11-foot slower action rod. We'll talk about that a little bit as we go. But yeah, I use the high stick. I lift as much as I can. I've got a specific leader formula that I use, and that, of course, we'll teach folks here. And I use the rod as much as possible. Yes, I am mending, but I use the rod as much as possible to maintain, to achieve and maintain that dead drift. So why don't we, I'll go out in this run and kind of show my method of doing it, and then you can grab a rod and show them a little bit about how you do it.
Sounds good.
Yep, cool. Okay, of course, this style of casting, when you've got a bunch of split shot and an indicator on there, is just absolutely not technical. That's why I don't spend big money on a high stick drifting rod. I just buy these inexpensive medium to slower action rods, absolutely perfect for this. And most of the time, I'm not even making a full-blown fly cast. I'm just doing a variation of the roll cast. But a couple of things have to happen as soon as that fly hits the water. As soon as the fly hits the water, of course, the line is going to go under my index finger. That's the crux of my control system. And then I'm going to throw, of course, an initial mend in the system. There was a little strike right there. So I'm going to make my cast. The line goes under my index finger. I'm going to make an initial mend. And mending is where I'm going to take the fly line, and in this case, bottom. I'm going to take the fly line, and in this case, the butt section of the leader, which of course I use the amnesia for the butt section of the leader. And I'm literally going to take the rod tip and kind of make a reverse letter C in the air, and I'm going to throw that line and the amnesia upstream of the indicator. And that ensures that my split shot and my strike indicator, my split shot and my flies are going to be floating naturally with the speed of the current, okay? If I don't do that, if I don't throw that mend in there, eventually you'll see that the current is going to grab onto the fly line and the leader, and it's going to start to pull the fly line and the leader, and therefore pull the split shot and the flies across the water column, and that's just going to act unnaturally. So really the split shot and the flies have to be floating naturally with the speed of the current. Now what Josh referred to is I'll throw that initial mend, and then I immediately start raising the rod tip, maybe throw another little micro mends, we call them. Little micro mend right there. And then as it comes down past me, I start to lower the rod tip, okay? So I make my initial mend. I'll throw little micro mends in there as the drift is going, but I really raise the rod so that usually I don't have much, if any, fly line on the water. Okay, I may in some cases, but I try to keep as much fly line off the water as possible and maintain that perfect, what I call the perfect inch of drift. Okay, and let me explain that to you. The perfect inch of drift. If I raised the rod tip an extra inch, I would be pulling on the fly. If I lowered the rod tip an inch in that scenario, I would be putting enough slack on the water that the current could grab the line, the leader, and drag the fly unnaturally. So I'm really utilizing a whole system. I may sometimes even strip in some of the slack. I may make this cast. I may strip in some of the slack like this with this hand, And then I'm trying to achieve that perfect inch where if I raised it an inch, I pull the fly. If I lower it an inch, it grabs this. And also when the fish hits, it's going to be an inch to set the hook. So that's, in fact, I explained that in a video that we did back in 1998, 99. I think it was in Jerry Darkus and I, we did Steelheading Made Simple. I talked about the perfect inch. And that's true whether you're trout fishing, whether you're high stick drifting for steelhead. It's really the same thing. And the other thing worth noting is that when you go to set the hook, you always set the hook in a downstream motion, okay? This is really a clockwise motion. When let's say that I'm facing this way and I'm casting off my left shoulder and over to the right, it's really a clockwise motion, okay? I'm going this way, and you need to make sure that you stay going that way when you go to set the hook. I see so many people that make their drift, and then the fish hits, the bobber goes down, and they go to set the hook in that direction, upstream. And all you're doing is pulling the fly away from the fish. I call that technique, get away from my fly, okay? So if you do everything right, you've got a perfect inch of drift. Right there, I'm gonna lower, a little micro mend, I'm gonna lower so that I'm within that perfect inch, and then if the fish hits, boom, it's an inch to set the hook.
So hey, we just looked at Brian doing some high sticking, and now I want to kind of show you a little bit about stack mending. That's the way I fish typically when I'm running an indicator rig for steelhead. And I just find that it gives me the ability, especially on big water like this river we're on today, to get long, clean, drag-free drifts. And I'll go over a couple of the common questions that I get about it when I'm teaching people to do it. There is some concern with, you know, how much slack is out, can I get the hook set, and I'll go over and demonstrate how I do all that. So I'm gonna go ahead and just get some line here. I'm gonna want a decent amount of line off the reel, about as much as I need to cover whatever run I'm fishing. And I'll just go up, roll cast off my downstream side, get it out where I'm trying to go. The biggest thing is I need to pick up my rod tip really high and fire the line towards the far bank. And I'm trying to get about 10 or maybe even 15 feet of straight fly line above the indicator. But that's what's key to me, is I want to see the fly line straight in line with the current above that indicator. At least 10 feet of it would be nice. And as I go down the hole, as need be, I'm going to shoot line out, again, straight line above it, by taking the rod tip high up off my downstream side and fire the line out, shooting it out of the rod straight above the indicator, and just give me a long, clean, dead drift. So the most common question I get with this when I'm teaching my clients this is, Josh, when I'm fishing all of that slack, how do I get a hook set? It is a little different, but it can be done. So what I'm gonna do is, of course, set to the downstream side, which we always do with anytime we're fishing an indicator drift fishing like this. I'm gonna set to the downstream side. I wanna come low with the rod, and I wanna strip and set at the same time. So it's not like a strip set when you're fishing streamers where the rod's straight at the fly, but it's done much in the same manner where I'm stripping the line at the same time that I'm setting the hook. So I'll just go over that a couple of times. We'll get some imaginary bites here, and I'll demonstrate the hook set with the slack out. So I'm mended, I'm good, I've got all my slack up, and here we go. And I get a bite. I'll do that one more time so you can see me strip and set with the rod. I've got all my slack out, and I get a bite. It's just that easy. You'll get them every time. Greetings, cool kittens. All right, stop. All right, no, stop it. Turn that off. I'm gonna start coming at you weekly, provided I don't forget. And cut it. What's your battery? Anyway, what do you think's going on over here? Steelheading.
Oh, nothing.
Oh, nothing. Just catching steelhead. Fishing. Well, we're trying to film the fishing forecast, but Brian seems to have an addiction to chrome and he keeps catching steelhead. Oh, never mind. It just came off. Release.
I mean, they're doing a fishing forecast. What could be better than catching a fish? But since you're so offended. Oh!
Yep, another big one.
That's one of the hottest steelhead I've caught in a long time.
Oh, it's not. It's another hen.
She's mad.
I think you might be a second.
Yeah, this could.
She's still getting pretty nasty. This is, well, Brian has definitely declared that it is now spring because this is a sucker. So that's how you know. Or it could be a grayling. It kind of looks like a grayling. Beautiful fish, Bri.
That's what I'm talking about, man.
That looks kind of like a bonefish.
Okay, kind of a unique scenario here, and we got the perfect little back eddy or little whirlpool here in front of me to show you this. There may be some situations when you need to mend downstream, okay? And actually, in this case, the water closer to me is slower than the water out there. It's usually not the case, and I was just 10 foot up that way, and it was not the case. I come down here, and there's this little back eddy right here next to me. So the trick is to mend downstream. Okay, so you need to learn to read the water and read what the currents are doing to the butt section of the leader and the tip of your fly line if it's on the water. So in this case scenario, instead of your typical upstream mend or a reverse letter C, okay, I'm going that direction with the mend, and that allows me to achieve that perfect dead drift, and then again I can raise that rod tip to get the bulk of the slack off the water, and again maintain my perfect inch. Oh, by the way, friends, stay very close. Probably in the next few days I'll be doing an episode on the equipment that we've been using here. I'll talk about my rods, reel, line, and give you a diagram of the leader that I use for this style of fishing. We'll even take a look at some of the flies and some of the equipment. But I'm gonna do it from the studio where I don't feel like a corn dog in the frozen section. Well, there you have it, friends. Another great day on the water with our dear friend and head guide, Josh McQueen. It's always great to be out on the water. And although I don't do as much steelhead fishing as I used to, I still love getting out here, and it brings back memories of the 80s and 90s for me. So it's always a pleasure, and by gum, I just happened to catch some trophy steelhead today. So really a fantastic day on the water, as usual when you're out with Josh and the guides from Ohio Fly Fishing Guides. So we appreciate you watching. As always, be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. Hit that like button, that makes us feel good. And remember to hop on over to Mad River Outfitters and show some love so we can continue to make these videos for you. We really enjoy doing it, so stay tuned. Oh, remember to watch these videos too, these ones right here. I was gonna go find them, but no, they're right here. Yeah.